All right, guys, welcome back to the Khalim Seasonal Cup. We're going into round two. We're going to have an epic battle for you. Sunekichi versus Teddy, two of our top competitors in Feria. Joining me on the cast once again is going to be Scorch. What do you think of this matchup, dude?
This is, I kind of want to say unfortunate that we end up with this in round two because this would be, if you looked at the bracket and these players were on the other sides, kind of favorites to end up clashing in the finals. We have Sunekichi, who was number one in points for the season, coming off of winning the previous seasonal cup as well. Teddy, who's currently number one on ladder, trailed behind by Sunekichi, who's number two. Just both very, very incredible players and very interesting deck covers coming out from Teddy there.
Yeah, lots of banquets. Like we were saying in the earlier part of this stream, that banquet can pretty much be splashed into anything. It's a one late card, and it represents maybe even a more powerful card than Outland Ranger. We do see Yellow Rush from Teddy. I'm pretty sure that one on the left there is Yellow Rush. Blue Jump, maybe Red Combat using the banquet into the gift, and then maybe Dream Reaver on the far right. Can we see a few neutrals? That could be like free Emperor's Command, Radiance, maybe like Leia. So I think that's where Teddy's lineup is. As for Sunekichi, I'm not sure. Like, is that green, yellow sack, blue beasts, blue jump, or blue sevens, and then just mono red something?
Yeah, with the Cypher's Wrath, because it's just such a universally good control tool for red. It could be red combat, it could be red burn. Having the three neutrals in there, probably something more combat heavy, and you have Silent Horsemaster coming in as the movement that red really lacks. Down the far end, I think it's probably something like a Garridan Creation, just a standard blue list that runs Garridan for the AoE. And then, like you said, that green-blue probably going to be the Beasts. Could just be the green-blue mid-range that we've seen be so good in the past. A lot of spammy creatures, and then Frog Tossers, potentially Gift of the Rakoa as the big finisher in there.
Yeah, the Ring of Fish has been coming back recently. So Ring of Fish is definitely something we could see from Sunekichi. We do see both red decks getting banned, which is very interesting to me because red hasn't had much ladder representation recently. I guess this is more to say, like, leave my jump deck alone. I don't want you to have removal for my jump deck. But Yellow Rush is going to kick things off for Teddy. I'm pretty sure that's Yellow Rush. Its fairy account is very suggestive. And Sunekichi, I believe, picks sack.
Yeah, the yellow, when you see 30 of it, it could be a few different things sometimes. Generally, a low cost like that does lean more towards rush. It could be something that's more of a control-y event style, because then you have things like Soul Pact, Flashwind, Khalim's Training that really bring down that Varia cost. But generally, the creatures that you're running in that deck do bring that average back up. So we're seeing the Mistral Guide actually played in there. So very interesting to see that come out if it is going to be a more rush style.
Yeah, I have heard that Teddy has been running Mistral Guide Rush on ladder and holding that top spot with this. The one card that didn't feature in this deck, from the indication of the land counts, is Radiance. He's actually been running the new Radiance in Yellow Rush and then Mistral Guiding it in front of his opponent's orb just to have 10 damage. But it wasn't in the build, so he has cut that in favor of something else. Sunekichi going to be running the old school kind of like blue-green jump by the looks of it. Oh, okay. Going down the side. I haven't actually seen Teddy play this deck yet. So going down the side here, I guess Mistral Guide can start pumping creatures down the side and collect inferior, as well as being able to go in. So you could Mistral Guide a Demonic Salmon down, and then it can go across. But yeah, interesting to see him play a more slower line here.
Yeah, it maybe is just kind of in there to open up a lot of different lines. We now see the Scavenger as well, so really interesting synergies coming out from Teddy. You can play that Vermin to get the attack into the orb, and then play the Scavenger just in more kind of controlling positions where you're not really playing rush, but still dealing damage to the orb.
Teddy is definitely a fan of these like 2-card combos. We saw it with his Green Rush, where he was running Haunted Willow and a Tiki Piper for that 7/5/1/1 for 5 Faria. And now we have the we have this guy going after the collection, hitting and then reducing the cost of the Scavenger down to 2. So it's like a free Faria combo. I really love this synergy. It's absolutely fantastic.
Teddy's almost playing something like a yellow range deck. You're just sending your creature, like it's still dealing the orb from so far away, but you're also just slingshotting your creatures into good positions, even though you don't have your lands built up as aggressively as Yellow Rush generally does.
This does give Teddy the option to play from afar, so he can kind of pick and choose where his creatures go thanks to the slingshot of the Mistral Guide. So he can put Mistral Guide on collection. He has his land placements in a way where he can just launch creatures down. So, for example, he can move the Scavenger to the right, hit for 4, and then just launch the Salmon to the other side of the board down there to hit his orb.
This is fantastic here. Flash Salmon's even going to go all the way across and hit from the other side. And without his lands even being close, Teddy has 3 creatures, had 3 creatures, right around his opponent's orb.
And this this actually gives Yellow Rush a way to collect Faria as well as go face. Isn't this overpowered?
It's amazing too, because sometimes in the defending against Yellow Rush, you force them into positions where they can't get either their haste creatures to hit your orb right away, you block their one angle of attack. But Teddy's come up with a style here that is just generating way more angles of attack.
And setting up collectors and Sagittarius as well, so can even generate Faria when he hits the orb. So this is just like such a massive economy engine for Yellow Rush. Wait, is he? I guess he gets the flying on the Sagittarius, so he can just dash it to the middle and just give it the option to fly. May dash it somewhere else, but I can say just go into the middle there. So getting that fly off, gets a hit, gains a Faria, can then then shoot a Scavenger down. What is this, Teddy? What are you doing?
Now the super interesting thing to keep an eye on for what comes out for Teddy throughout the rest of the course of this game, is he going to be running Golden Aviaries?
Golden Avery, oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that. That's some next level stuff. And we can see the Mistral Guide probably doesn't. Oh, I would say the Mistral Guide probably doesn't move into double collection, but I guess it can move there and then just move back if it does want to launch another creature. But then Teddy can actually angle a land in between the wells, like that central one, just in between the wells, and he can launch creatures while double collecting and set up that last land for Spirit Theft.
And as much as we kind of have talked about the enjoyment for Teddy's deck so far, Sunekichi is getting to the point where he can start to stabilize the game against a rush. If he chooses to, he can pick off the Vermin on the right side, stop the collection over there, set up potentially a 3/7 Shifting Octopus in the middle, very difficult tanky creature that Teddy's going to immediately struggle to deal all the damage to punch through that. And then we have Frog Tosser potentially coming up next turn. Sunekichi also running Runan's Guidance, mean he, in the late game, can potentially heal out of range if Teddy goes for an all-in to try to end the game. So Sunekichi is starting to get to that point where he can start to stabilize. He just has a lot of decisions in this turn specifically of what he wants to go for.
Yeah, absolutely right there, because the Frog Tosser does deal with the Mistral Guide, and the Mistral Guide is the engine at the moment. It's a way that Teddy is able to send these creatures into the aggressive positions. Once you take care of that, it will slow Teddy down a lot. And like you said, going to go for the double collector here, just respecting it. Does he go for the 3/5 taunt or the 3/7 like you suggested? But goes for the 3/7. I think that's the best way to do this. Just get that durable, bulky creature down, which is a little difficult to deal with.
Yeah, going for the 3/5 there with taunt, you do save the 4 life hit to the orb, which looks like the Scavenger could go for this turn. But then the Scavenger and the Sagittarius still kill the Octopus. And Sunekichi in this situation just looks like he's valuing having a creature survive because he can recover with the Guidance, like I mentioned. He's okay to still take a little more damage as long as he does stabilize the board past that.
And he goes up to 7 Fairy. He's going to be on 7 Fairy next turn, so he can heal and Frog Tosser if there was a lot of damage represented this turn. I think the problem we have here for Teddy is he has like a lot of little tricks, but he doesn't have a lot of meats, you know? He doesn't have a lot of big creatures that can come down and challenge stuff like the 3/7, the 3/6. So I think you're right. I think Sunekichi is definitely going to stabilize next turn.
Yeah, definitely. We've already seen the 2 scavengers come out from Teddy, so he is, like you mentioned, kind of running out of steam of the big creatures, especially next turn, the Frog Tosser, if it is able to clear off the guide, then you end up potentially with just the Sagittarius left on board, and Sunekichi really having the control. So Teddy, I think, would have liked to go for a draw there and find another big creature, but developed a land instead.
Double harvest here from the salmon with the double Sagittarius down. Goes for the frog in a very safe position as well. Going to move it to the other side of the board. So just representing problems on the right. And the salmon cycles into another salmon, but now this is Sunekichi stabilizing turn. Being able to Frog Tosser, the Mistral Guide will develop a frog next to the Sagittarius. Luckily for Teddy, he does have his own frog kind of flying around the place. Definitely being Superman this time with that cape. And he can deal with that 2/2 on the follow-up. But like I said, stabilization is definitely on the cards right now.
Little awkward, the Shifting Octopus kind of in that no man's land of not able to fight any creatures right now, not able to collect, but right now actually serving a pretty good purpose because it is blocking the Sagittarius. If the board kind of stays the way it is, Sagittarius is going to take so long to actually punch through that octopus. It gives Sunekichi so much time.
Yeah, it's difficult for Teddy because he doesn't, like I say, doesn't have any gas really. He has lots of utility, but no gas to follow up. I mean, a Zealous Crusader could represent a lot of problems for Sunekichi on paper, but the Frogify is there waiting. I really like Frog Tosser on the Mistral Guide, regardless of if the 2/2 can clear it, mainly just to shut down that engine and force Teddy to build more deserts. And that's always a good thing. Forcing Yellow Rush to use the power wheel to build lands rather than drawing cards.
It actually looks like he's going to clear the frog here because of that land that he developed. Is super interesting because he has the buffs. He can then go for clearing the guide with the extra range that his Toad now has. But this movement from the Shifting Octopus does open up attacks to the orb. Teddy just not finding things like Khalim's Prayer to then cycle through for more cards.
He can run the Flash Salmon into... Yeah, he could run the Flash Salmon into the Frog Tosser and then Spirit Theft it. And then Frog Tosser the 4/4. That is an option going forward.
Yeah, I mean, would potentially be a setup that Teddy could go for. The kind of issue with that is that you then are 2 lands away from being able to play the Frog Tosser, and even though it is a very powerful card to swing back, Teddy already has a very aggressive deck that just wants to go for the orb damage, meaning that he wants to draw into all of those tools. He wants to get more vermins, wants to potentially get a Zealous Crusader, or find more haste creatures to continue hitting the orb and try to end the game, I think, quicker than going for the more control of getting a Frog Tosser play.
Yeah, just go Face. Face is the place right now. He's got his opponent on the ropes. We saw the guidance go on the 4/4, so Teddy's probably thinking, you know what? He's used his heal as power here, and this could be an opportunity to close out the...
Teddy playing so smart with this Mistral Guide as well, just moving it into the right positions at the right times. So actually surprised by that move because he could have moved the Mistral Guide into a protected position between the wells. But I think in the current setup, he's looking actually for the trade into the Battletoads. He's now moved the Sagittarius so it can potentially attack into the life remaining of the Frog Tosser if he doesn't go for that clear or something along those lines. Just creating different attack angles for the ranged.
Right, we do see a clear on the 2/2. We have that heal in hand. Another Octopus is picked up. The 4/4 can jump across, finish off the Mistral Guide, which is okay because the Salmon is still in range. Teddy hasn't seen a prayer yet. I'd be surprised if he didn't run it, but a prayer would definitely help as well, just giving him that card draw. That's what he needs right now. He just needs gas.
Sunekichi with a couple options. Like you mentioned, the Frogify is there. The Shifting Octopus potentially could be played in a good line as well. The Shifting Octopus trade that Sunekichi just took, like I mentioned a little earlier, now body blocks the Sagittarius again. So if Teddy draws a prayer to try to get that gas like you're talking about, he's now not going to be able to hit the orb unless he uses a different creature. He's not going to be able to get all of his options in play first and then decide what to do with all of them. He's going to have to go for something like the Salmon.
Oh, last Nightmare. So he can Nightmare the 3/5. Make sure the Salmon does go for the orb. See a Wind Soldier come out. So the damage is represented. It's just, he just needs a little bit more, gonna Spirit Theft this now. So he does take care of that threat. Probably waits, I think. I don't think you actually do anything this time. I think you probably just shoot the 3/5, the 3/3 there, yeah, and just pass and just wait. Right now, Teddy's in a winning position, right? Because Sunekichi, even though he can stabilize, he still needs to do 20 damage to his opponent. And with that last Nightmare in hand, he has the option to just chill out for a little bit, wait till he draws enough damage to win the game and go from there. Looks like he's going to preemptive Nightmare, so I guess this is just to poke with the damage anyway, because then he can finish off the Octopus with the Sagittarius if it doesn't get a power-up.
Yeah, really good setup here from Teddy. Continuing to push through that damage. He's potentially going to go for more lands now because he doesn't have the guide anymore. So that does set up into a Frog Tosser down the line as well. And like you said, if Sunekichi goes for the trade here, which he looks like he has to do, it's going to get cleared off. The Octopus is going to get cleared off by the Sagittarius. And Sunekichi just doesn't really have the creatures that you would want in this situation. Potentially would want something like a Frog Tosser would be really strong. And a heads-up movement with the land as well. Not only blocking the potential desert spaces Teddy can go for, but also getting out of the attack angle for the Sagittarius.
Oh, wow. So Baron Sky Vermin, I completely forgot that card was in the deck. We did see it in the early game, but again, another way for Teddy to get that 1 damage. I can go for a Wind Soldier here. I guess you go for the clear of the frog. So just trying to starve the resources. You're going to shoot here with the Sagittarius, play the Vermin Sky, gain a bit more Feria. And this also builds towards 1 land away from the Frog Tosser. So can potentially Frog Tosser a central creature to allow the Sagittarius to hit again. And the Vermintide challenges the Shifting Octopus.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Teddy went for that play because I think he could have just attack with the Sagittarius and done nothing. And then you potentially set up Frog Tosser clears whatever creature is potentially body blocking the orb. Sagittarius, Vermin, and Wind Soldier represents lethal on the following turn. It would be 5 damage on that turn. And Teddy kind of could have just potentially baited Sunekichi into thinking he was a little safer. Now that he goes down to 4, I think the guidance potentially has to come out from Sunekichi here. Even though he knows that the card in hand is a Frog Tosser, any type of haste movement coming out would be so much damage. And yeah, goes for the heal. So I think potentially that was a turn where Teddy could have played a little slower to bait Sunekichi into thinking he was safer than he actually was.
Another thing to consider as well, that Teddy's actually only 10 Feria away from Gargana Dream. And that could really help him when Yellow Rush on 20 Feria. This is the world we live in, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy's, because he has 2 Sagittariuses on the board, every time he attacks the orb, he gets 2 Feria. And the deck is very low cost as well. So he's just been able to generate so much extra Feria. Even running the Last Nightmares in there doesn't look like they're that high cost because you have such an incredibly high Feria pool to use.
6 damage can come down this turn with the Wind Soldier. Another Mistral Guide picked up. Can take a draw here. Finds a Scavenger. So can just like Mistral Guide, Scavenger, can do a lot of good stuff. You're going to go for the board control. I respect this. I think just locking Sunekichi out of his Furia options is a little better than pushing damage. Because the thing is, Teddy will win this game. It is inevitable if the game state stays this way. So the best thing for Teddy to do is just control the board and just chip away very slowly. Because he's never going to run out of Furia. The only thing he can run out right now is cards, which he's close to be honest. But then we have Towel thrown in from Sunekichi. This very interesting Yellow Rush deck takes game 1.
Yeah, like you said, Teddy going for the more control lines, eventually it's death by 1,000 cuts. Even if it's 1 damage at a time, he is going to win that game eventually, as long as he starves out whatever Sunekichi's options are. So really good by Teddy going for that. And then, of course, found some of those bigger creatures. Like we were talking about on some of the very early turns in that game, Teddy just needed that extra big creature in the 4/4 and then the Scavenger, the 4/3 as well, just to represent being even more damage, and Sunekichi realizing he can't keep up at that point.
So green-yellow sacrifice potentially coming from Sunekichi here. A deck that traditionally does pretty well against Yellow Rush. It has a lot of small creatures that can challenge the hasters. When the creatures die, you get value because it's powering up your Soul Eaters. Spider, really good pickup to start things off as well. You can chip away at those vermins if they go off the collection. Spirit Rebirth is also a very good one. I'd actually keep this hand. Wind Soldier clears the scavengers. Spirit of Rebirth generates value. Good hand, the Sunekichi.
Yeah, very good start for Sunekichi here. And even though we did see the Last Nightmare in Teddy's deck, it's probably a maybe 2 of. So Sunekichi, as long as he's able to control the early game well enough, once he gets to those Soul Eaters, Teddy potentially won't have any way to deal with them.
Look how different the land development is here. If you have the Mistral Guide in the opening hand, it looks like you can go for that kind of side build, go for the harvesting, but without it, you just have to play traditional Yellow Rush.
Yeah, but it is going to start to come down if Teddy chooses to. He can get that Demonic Salmon down. Could go for a Scavenger as a follow-up, but it doesn't end up being right within range, so I don't know if he'll go for that aggressive on this turn. But at least for now, he does start poking at the orb a little bit.
I don't think I would have minded Zealous Crusader there just so it could haste across and kill the 3/3. But, charge across and kill the 3/3 with the charge too. So we had that option. The Scavenger's not quite in reach, but it isn't threatened by the Wind Soldier just yet. Another desert is required before Sunekichi can get that down, but the Spider, very good follow-up here.
Yeah, Darkwood Stalker going to be really good. Shaitan Assassin's an interesting one in this list as well, because it does represent killing off some of the bigger creatures that Teddy's going to play. But the fact that Teddy's running Spirit Thefts means it's actually very dangerous against Sunekichi as well, because it can, although you don't really want to sacrifice, maybe you can use it onto something like the Demonic Salmon, and then you represent killing off a Bone Collector if it starts to get rolling, or killing off a Spirit of Rebirth very efficiently. So it is a very dangerous swing that can happen with that Shaitan Assassin back and forth for both players.
Oh, there's also the Baron Sky Vermin, right? So that's a good sack target as well, especially if you don't have that Mistral Guide down to put into collection. So that's another one you could sack, or not sack anything at all and just leave it as a 1/1 Death Touch. That still is a problem in itself. So another Zealous Crusader picked up here. This is why I like Zealous Crusader over the Scavenger this turn. Double neutral across, killed the Spirit and stop that value being generated. It's a bit more difficult to do that now. I guess you could double neutral, move the Scavenger back, and then Wind Soldier, but I don't know. I don't really like that. I guess you just have to play a Zealous this turn. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is really awkward because, like you mentioned, if Teddy wanted to create lands to go for a Wind Soldier clear, then you have to move the Scavenger into an awkward position, or it would body block. I honestly, in this setup, don't mind Teddy going for either a desert or double prairies on the left side and actually collecting with the Scavenger and then set up the Crusader like you were talking about last turn. He's going to go for the more aggressive desert here, but does set up that Crusader because, like you mentioned, you have to get at that Spirit of Rebirth before it can start generating a lot of value.
And this desert does get him a little closer to the Spirit Theft. So one turn away from Spirit Theft, having that as an option could be very beneficial. And that's maybe why he's decided on that first. But with the Explore in hand, Sunekichi can go Explore Desert onto the well spot, meaning that the Wind Soldier spot still is represented, but he doesn't have an aggressive collection spot, which I don't think matters in this build because we haven't seen any monks or followers, and the salmons can't collect. So even if he does go for Explore Desert onto the left, I don't think it's that big of a deal for Teddy.
The other thing that Sunekichi could go for here, if he's going to go for the Wind Soldier clear, even though he potentially doesn't, can't go for a collection, could put some land in front between the Crusader and the Spirit, and just move the Deepwood Stalker there, clear off the Scavenger with a Wind Soldier. You potentially set up your second Wind Soldier to clear off the Crusader and protect your Spirit of Rebirth that way, but is going to value the collection more.
This could actually high roll pretty well. Go for the Assassin first, hit the Scavenger, roll the 50-50 on the Spirit. If you hit the Wind Soldier, you get to clear the full. Oh, there we go. That's what you want to see.
Fantastic line spotted by Sunekichi there. I think had 2 shots at it as well of getting the buffs down because of the Wind Soldier trade could have been one, and then the sacrifice could have been one. So you end up setting up most of the time getting that buff. Really heads up. I think we're gonna see the Spirit Theft onto. Oh no, he is gonna go for the full right across. Thought that could have been a situation where Teddy goes for clearing off the Assassin, going for the Spirit Theft that turn, and like you mentioned, using the Vermin as a sacrifice, but just sets up this way, potentially Spirit Theft next turn, and not have a sacrifice target now.
I think that's fine. I don't think he necessarily needs the sack target, because now, let's say Bone Collector comes down on that prairie, he takes maybe a clear on the Vermin. He has a Bone Collector set up in case there's another Wind Soldier or a Soul Drain or something like that, or even a Spirit Theft, so the Bone Collector does get a power-up to make sure that it clears the Assassin if it comes down on the follow-up. So I feel that like Forest on the Prairie Bone Collector is your safest line to play around Spirit Theft because he has seen it from the previous game.
Sunekichi's Soul Eater right now is actually at a pretty good spot. As soon as it gets to 7, that represents a 3-turn clock. Doesn't have exactly the creatures in hand to accelerate that towards a 10-10 and get it to a 2-turn clock, but so big of a stat line reaching to the 7-7 because even he's going to create a land this turn, create a land next turn, and then you potentially just go Soul Eater and try to outrace your opponent, force them into a situation where if they don't have the last Nightmare, they potentially just can't deal with the Soul Eater.
And a central land as well, just above the desert in the middle, could be very strong because it just puts that Soul Eater in the position for the race. Teddy could have a very heads-up play and just double neutral across just to stop that push. That's also an option. I could just go Spirit Theft Zealous Crusader this turn. That's not bad. It just depends what he wants to do with his Power Wheel. Does he go for draw? Yes, he does go for draw. Okay.
And another Vermin picked up means he, again, has that sacrifice target if he wants to get the protection down onto the Shaitan Assassin. And that potentially stops the central Soul Eater like you were talking about, because Sunekichi won't be able to play it on any side, on any of the left side lands if it's within range of Teddy's Shaitan Assassin.
Yeah, that'd be really heads up from Teddy. It looks like he's gone for it. Go for the central Vermin, just so it doesn't power up the Bone Collector if it goes next to it on the desert. Oh, actually going for the Crusader instead. So just putting that damage down and representing that. Wait, what's the Soul Eater at? 8-8. So could actually go for central Soul Eater this turn in a more defensive position, I guess, or could play it on the wilds. The Barren Sky Vermin also represents a block for that Soul Eater, so it can just sit there.
And another thing as well, the Vermin could be sacrificed by an Assassin coming down at Teddy's own orb, and you just essentially stop Sunekichi from ever being able to punch through with Soul Eaters. He would have to get 2 Stalkers, or potentially his final Wind Soldier and a Stalker, something like that, where green-yellow just won't be able to punch through that protected assassin. And then I don't know how Teddy really ever loses the game outside of Sunekichi being able to block everything and eventually just having no resources left and fatiguing. Like,
it is it's a difficult one. This is an interesting turn. I like the clear. I was about to say clear the Bone Collector, and then the Soul Eater doesn't gain stats anymore for creatures that die. So you can set up a soul. Well, you could have set up a Soul Drain, I suppose, but gonna go for the block here. Now, how does he deal with this? This is a problem. I mean, Soul Eater can get out of the way, but he doesn't really get up to much, does he? He can kind of move to the side and collect and wait, I suppose. But the assassin's still gonna be there. How does he deal with this?
Yeah, and because of the way that Sunekichi went for the Soul Eater basically blocking the Crusader from hitting the orb, that could be one space up. And Sunekichi could flip the game and just go aggressive. You deal 8 damage this turn. Because is that one space away, he's not actually able to reach the orb this turn, and it ends up being so awkward where you can't clear creatures, you can't hit the orb, you can't really go for like moving into double collection on the right side because that clock is on from Teddy. So just ends up being super awkward now for Sunekichi really to do anything.
Yeah, I guess you draw. I don't know what you draw for. I don't know what's in the deck. I guess just stuff he can stick down, right? So he is just gonna move up and go for an aggressive land, go for the spider, and just play it as a threat. So that's 10 damage, right? So he's just representing 10 damage next turn. The thing is, the Sagittarius has 3 life, so it can just block here. It can also generate Feria for the Assassin and the Zealous Crusader. So it's really unfortunate that the Sagittarius does defend against the Spider in this situation.
Yeah, and being that one land away is so huge in what is now looking like it would be a race situation. Because if Sunekichi had been able to attack the orb there, he's got potentially a first attack advantage, even though he was a little lower on life to start the race, but also wouldn't have had this situation where Teddy's actually able to body block with a creature.
So you have to backpedal now, I guess, with the Soul Eater. The Soul Eater comes back, kills the Zealous, but the damage has been done. That's the problem. We've seen how effective Teddy's deck is just chipping away at you very slowly, and this taking your opponent down to 9 in this situation is a good position for Teddy. You know, he has that Wind Soldier in hand. That represents 3 damage. The Demonic Salmon lives now because the Spider was played as a race card rather than as a removal piece. So just a very awkward situation for Sunekichi. Things have not gone right for him this game.
And the other awkward part here is neither of the creatures in hand impact the board that much unless he goes for this line, which is getting the Bone Collector down. And getting the Bone Collector down means he had to create a land so it would be in a better position. Sunekichi in this spot, I think, really just wants to draw and find something else, but I don't know what you draw into that is that something else that helps, unless it's another Soul Eater. Again, getting very close to the point where Sunekichi can flip the board with the next Soul Eater, but is just so focused right now on survival.
The Bone Collector is a bit of an issue, because if you clear the Soul Eater now with the Assassin, the Bone Collector gets some stats, enough to challenge the Demonic Salmon once the Village Elder goes into it, and that represents card draw. I don't know what you do. Like, do you protect your Sagittarius in this situation and Wind Soldier, the Spider? Like, there's a lot of different decisions that need to be made here. Okay. I guess he's going to kill the Bone Collector.
And the Wind Soldier comes down, I guess, to finish off the Soul Eater.
Yes. Oh, see Teddy finding the answer. This is a very good line. And then +1 into a Mistral Guide, so just representing 4 damage on the follow-up as well. So that is 4, 5, 6, 7 damage going into next turn. And Sunekichi's not really in a position on free Feria where he can take 7 damage next turn. He can't generate, enough power on board to stop this onslaught.
Yeah, and Teddy recognizing in that situation, like you were talking about, there were potentially lines that he could have gone for the Wind Soldier, clear off the Deepwood Stalker, and protect his Sagittarius. But this type of setup is, I don't need the Sagittarius anymore. I can win right now with the creatures that I have. And Teddy just kind of abandons that and goes for the more aggressive.
So now the assassin, I guess, goes into the Elder, and then you move the Mistral Guide to the center. You can then hit face for 6, buffing up the salmon for a lethal turn. There is also another Mistral Guide in hand, so you can +1 and play another Mistral Guide down right next to the other one, and then it can dash in between the wells, in between the well and the Recohen, to stop any collection on the follow-up. Could just use Demonic Salmon here to clear the Village Elder if he does value the Death Touch.
Is there any way to, I guess if you move the, oh, you're just going to trade with the Death Touch. I was going to say you could move the Assassin back, and although it doesn't get damage, you could push more through to the Orb this turn, but this definitely looks like Teddy's going to set up just for another guide down and then have that potential 8 damage next turn. The Salmon attacking the Orb means it survives against the Village Elder here.
Ooh. So we have to go in and see what the card draw gives. Spirit Rebirth not really helping here. The problem is, even if you spider the free one, the 2 Mistral guys can shimmy around the side and finish him off for that 8 damage. So 2-0 with this Yellow Rush. We saw the Mistral Guide opening where you play from your orb and you just shoot creatures down with its ability. And we've seen a more traditional style when you don't have access to that Mistral Guide in the early game.
Yeah, very heads-up play by Teddy throughout both the games, able to adapt to different styles, even playing the same deck. It's very interesting builds coming out with the guides in there because it does give you so much versatility throughout the course of a game. You can reset if necessary, you can push in a lot of different situations. It just opens up so many lines that are so different.
Blue jump coming down for Sunekichi. Could have been 7s. You know, we saw the mountain in there, which represents probably the Garadan. Splashing in Garadan into blue is not something unheard of. It is something that we've seen in the past. I did see the 1 cost free. Now, that's one of the blue cards I haven't seen a lot of recently.
Yeah, the Bloated Toad is a super interesting one, in my opinion, because I think blue jump always gets more creatures out onto the board. It's just generally the way that it controls the early game. So you can actually set up pretty good trades, whether it's Humbling Vision or if you're able to accelerate quickly and get the Phantasm like we saw earlier on in our first series of the day. You can then take a good trade with the Bloated Toad, and you still usually have another creature on board to kill the 2/2 that's summoned for your opponent.
I kind of feel that Bloated Toad has probably a more stable home in green-blue, where you can put spiders and frog tossers in the deck. So you have a from-hand answer to those 2/2s. But as long as you have board, like you said, you can deal with the frog. But this is looking pretty good for Teddy already. He has the Vermin, so he can get that hit and get that Sagittarius going. He has the Salmon, so he can have a big snowball turn next. It just depends on how Sunekichi defends. That's what's going to be important here. How is he going to defend this turn?
Yeah, one of the things that I think Blue Jump does really well right now against any rush deck is actually how quickly it gets creatures out onto the board. You have decent enough stat lines to defend, but you also very quickly get out onto the wells. So if Sunekichi's going for like the Battletoads, for example, this turn, doesn't quite have the lands to go Battletoads and the Triton Warrior, but you're able to get a couple creatures out that set up both defending and getting the extra resources through collection that allows you to actually keep pace with the lower cost creatures that yellow is going to spam out.
Now, once upon a time, Blue Jump used to be able to outrush yellow in this match. And we're going to see it. I think this is more of a defensive structure. So trying to make it awkward for the salmons to hit. So if you look at this setup, we have 2 lands in the front. We have the creature blocking with the Sunken Tower, move across, and then put down the neutral. So Teddy basically can't build a forest where that neutral is. A desert where that neutral is, and then hit with the salmon. So very good line there from Sunekichi, just being able to defend against the salmon line.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we do generally talk about. Of one of the ways to defend against a rush is to actually push your lands to them. If you can get a very good base set up in more towards the middle of the board, and then you're able to defend that line, you're able to stop your opponent from getting any deserts right beside your orb, and then their haste creatures, even when they come out, are that much further away. Now, Teddy's list, we see the Mistral Guide, so he's going to open up more angles that way. And also the creatures that he's running generally have charge. It's not like the Orodrim Monk style where they only have haste and don't have that additional movement to actually hit through. So his deserts won't be as impacted by that type of strategy, but Sunekichi definitely playing into more of that land defense.
And this defense also offers him aggressive lines because now, for example, he could jump up with the Triton Warrior onto that desert. He could make a lake onto the left. So doing that kind of end of, like the feathers of an arrow. That's kind of like the shape it makes. So it blocks off that land development. And stepping on the desert actually makes it more difficult for the Mistral Guide to set anything up because he needs to play a Mistral Guide on a desert and then have a spare desert available in order to shoot his creatures down. So this does slow Teddy down a lot.
And a big thing as well, Sunekichi actually is able to start putting on pressure if he wants to. He's got the warrior right in the middle of the board, could represent hitting the orb next turn. Also going to go 2-4 lakes, so potentially a Tide Lord can come down, and that's going to be a little awkward. And then just has the proper defensive setup as well, that Teddy's not going to be able to win a race and may have to use some of his aggressive tools defensively.
Yeah, this is the thing now. Like, do you win Soldier, the Frog? Oh, no, I mean, you need to do more than that, really. You need to win Soldier, maybe Salmon, the 4-4, but then you don't have a way to clear out one of the 2-2s to push past. So it looks like it's kind of back to the orb here. Set up some creatures, some bulk. Gonna push that across. So we can't actually get to that with... Oh, we can with the Sunken Tower, I guess. So you can push the neutral out the way and then jump onto it and then kill the 1-3. So it's all just kind of awkward. I guess this is a way you can get down there. This is kind of damage control I see as a line. It's not what Yellow Rush wants to do, but it does just set up some things for Sunekichi to think about.
A very nice dash with the Scavenger there as well, because it blocks the clear onto the Sagittarius that you were just talking about. Sunekichi would actually have to develop a land over there now. Can't just move the Scavenger across.
I mean, you could move the neutral above it, right? And then jump across with the Triton.
Yeah, very true.
It just depends if he wants to use the 2-2 to kill the 1-1. I think that's where the decision-making comes in, right? Like I said, I don't think this is Teddy's optimal line. It's just a line that offers ways that Sunekichi has to think and maybe can leave room for error, which opens up more optimal options for Teddy going into the next turn.
Yeah, there is a way to take all those value trades, killing off the Vermin, potentially jumping with the Warrior over there and kill the Sagittarius. The other Battletoad can jump back and clear off the Demonic Salmon, and that, depending on the way that you move everything, would give you the collection to summon a 6/6 Tide Lord in a lot of good positions. That leaves the Scavenger and the Mistral Guide alive, but the Scavenger doesn't represent orb damage right now, although it does represent getting a good land in. And the Mistral Guide is kind of in that no man's land. It looks like Sunekichi is going to go for that line.
So just pushing back himself, I see. I quite like this, just representing a threat of his own, putting that 6/6 down, still has the 4-3. He does leave the Mistral Guide open, so he does give options for Teddy to maneuver his creatures around. He can move down now with the Mistral Guide, and he has that desert in front of him, which he can then dash his creatures around to get to the orb. But we can probably see Sunekichi going for more defensive lines this turn. Teddy going for defensive line. It's Teddy's turn. But the problem is it's a 6/6. You're going to have to run in two guys. The 2-1 is annoying as well. There's a 4-3. There's just a lot of creatures about that cause problems.
Yeah, like the Scavenger is in a really good position right now where you could create another desert, potentially on the well position for the Zealous Crusader. But then you still have to deal with that sunken tower. So it looks like he is just going to go with a more aggressive clear with the Wind Soldier as well.
Yeah, he gets a nice double collection.
Oh, that's a fantastic movement there from Teddy.
And I guess, like, by dashing up the Zealous Crusader over to the side, he represents a collection. It's out of reach of the 6/6. And currently the race stands 6 damage for Sunekichi and 9 damage for Teddy, with the potential of more haste creatures coming down. So putting Sunekichi in a spot where, again, he kind of still needs to play defensive. He doesn't have the luxury to just slam a lot of creatures down and go for the race.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of mentioned it on the Soul Eater in the last game. A 6/6 is still a 4-turn clock. If it was a 7/7, you potentially can end the game in 3. But the amount of pressure that Teddy has right now ends the game in 2 turns with the 9 damage that's there. So it's just not enough stats for Sunekichi to go for a race now. Potentially has to dash back and then set up something like the Bloated Toad Animated Banquet as 4/4, potentially gets the trade that he wants into the Crusader, and then you can finish that off with the Emperor's Command. But it's still super awkward.
He could use the Emperor's Command to race. You know, you could use it as a heal. That is an option. But it's just kind of awkward. That's the problem. It's just a little awkward. And this is a interaction that Manchi actually mentioned. So if you swallow the Banquet with a Bloated Toad, once you kill the Bloated Toad, the Banquet will override the last word. So you will get the Banquet over your opponent getting the 2/2 frog. So that's one of the interactions players have been using with the Bloated Toad so far.
Yeah, I really don't like going for this line for Sunekichi, just because even if all of this survives, he can deal 10 damage next turn, but your opponent is at 14. We, of course, see the heal come out, and he's now at 16 and definitely out of range. But Sunekichi going for that line still didn't represent finding lethal on this turn. Maybe he was setting up for like the Emperor's Command for the heal if Teddy didn't have another creature and hope to win that way. But even just, I think the setup, if you're going for this, needs to be, okay, I'm setting up for lethal next turn, not I'm hoping my opponent can't kill me on their next turn.
And like you said, the 9 damage, it was a 2-turn clock, right? So you're kind of gambling all on the fact that you're able to kill them on the follow-up, because if you don't and then Teddy had the answers, then you're just blown out, right? How do you win from here? And I think that's where Sunekichi is right now. He's just like, well, there's too many threats. Like, he can kill the 4/3, but it's not enough. He could even heal, but it's delaying the inevitable. And there we see the Tal thrown in, Teddy taking a decisive 3-0 over Sunekichi. I mean, this was when the clash of the Titans in the earlier rounds, but this Yellow Rush, just so strong, so versatile. It can play from the orb and it can play from the face. We have not seen a Yellow Rush like this in competitive Feria. Very powerful.
Yeah, really strong play from Teddy, showing the versatility of that deck build the way that he's got it, just because he can go for so many different lines. Even in that one, he basically just spammed creatures out and told Sunekichi to do the work. And whatever panned out, he would respond to. So he kind of forces his opponent in that type of a game into all bad situations almost, where you're just saying, okay, here's everything. You decide what to do about what is the worst kind of thing to deal with, and then I'll react from there.
And that's the best situation for Teddy to be in that state. Well, best situation for both players have been the player who has to make all the decisions on the defense has room to make the wrong decision, right? Because based on what your opponent has in hand or how your opponent can react, it's much more easier for the one player to sit back, just play his stuff down, say, right, you answer this, see what they answer, and go, right, I'll just respond with this because this is the line you've given me. Whereas like Sunekichi, on the other hand, had to figure out all this stuff, like what's he going to do? Can he race? Does he need to take the clear? If he takes the clear, will he still be able to win anyway? So Teddy definitely putting the pressure on Sunekichi in that game.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we have it. Round 2, one of the top competitors of the world circuit taken out by Teddy, who's been on a dominating streak in the Cypher Open so far. He's won 2 back-to-back, I believe. using a variety of different decks. We saw the resurgence of Green Rush before the second part of the resurgence came out. We saw Green Earth Sacrifice makes its return both in this series and in Teddy's previous lineup. So yeah, this is looking like it could be Teddy's tournament, but he still has very powerful opponents to beat before he can move on. So we're going to go to a quick break while we set up another match. Stay tuned. We have a lot of Feria action ready for you guys coming up. And yeah, we'll be back very soon.